Yeah, Jordan's in the house. Come on, get up. We're sitting here like this again, talking about what should have been. You roll your eyes like you just don't care. Let's get the
Two generations, one mission. When a Marine Corps dad and his Army veteran son sit down to talk life, legacy, and leadership, you know it's going to be real. This isn't just another podcast. It's a bridge between wisdom and action, between past lessons and future goals. Welcome to the conversation we all need, but very few men ever get to have. Father, son, purpose. Let's go. Any illness is the stroke. Screenings provide peace of mind or
I've even been to a Ducks game
Hmm?
since I've been here. So
Since you've been there, you've been an Oregon fan.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, I was watching. So I know that I guess Army started out on Thursday. Yeah, I think they played on Thursday, but they lost to Tarkington State.
oh yeah, freaking there was a bunch of upsets this week. Yeah, you seen
Yeah,
Florida State beat Alabama's behind.
Florida State. Yeah, that was one. Yeah,
Ooh
Army
wee,
lost. It was like,
freaking
especially Army last year was really good, except
Army
that
last year was really good in
to the
comparison to the
end,
last few years. The only problem with that is um
everybody
when you
graduated.
got kids that are graduating and that was the majority of you know who was your powerhouse on your line and everything else as far as holding the O line and everything else, making those holes and everything. You suffer. There's quite a obvious talent gap between this year's class and last year's
Yeah,
class.
a lot of their talent is
But yeah, most definitely. But surprisingly, I see Navy has a new offense since when they start passing.
Well, they started passing. Navy started passing with the quarterback Harvat, who's their number one starter last year. And I totally forgot as I was thinking back at the end of the year, but realized that Navy was 10-3 last year.
Yeah, yeah.
And the last two games was beating Army, which was at 12-2, and then they also beat Oklahoma. So
Mm-hmm.
Navy's program kind of stepped up, but they started passing more last year. So it's a different type of, it still has the mix in there of the option in there, but it's a
Yeah,
totally
but
different.
but they're actually passing when they should pass
Oh
now.
yeah, they're passing. So yesterday, Navy
They won
won,
yesterday.
yeah, 52-7.
Yeah,
That was with three quarterbacks. Yeah, that was
crazy.
it was 28-0 at the half, and then you brought in the other quarterback, Watson, and he scored. He came in and ran something like 190 yards and two touchdowns. So they pulled him out. And they put the third string in, and then the third string quarterback he also scored. So
Mm.
they
All I
the
know
real thing is
is,
the defense. It's been the
yeah,
defense.
yeah,
Navy's got a really good defense,
yeah.
and that's been the big thing up on there. So
All I know is during that Ohio State game, I was just laughing to myself because everything that they tried to say that Shador was was everything that little Archie Manning was yesterday. Um, Overrated, not prepared, and was only getting by on his last name because no matter how bad he played, they kept wanting to try to give him accolades. And, oh no, he'll get better. He'll be better. Why? Because his last name is Manning.
because his last
Let's
name is
just call a
Manning.
spade a spade.
Yeah,
He led the number one team into Ohio State and was supposed to beat the brakes off for them. They were saying, "Oh, he gonna do this to them, and he gonna do that, and he gonna do this." That boy looked like a fifth round pick to me.
yeah, yeah. He's been there. He's been there. I know. I know. Because of the name. That's what it is. I know.
I
So
couldn't resist.
I
I'm
thought it
sorry. I
was
couldn't resist
interesting.
taking that shot this morning. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
Yeah, I was up for thinking about that. I thought that was it. So, oh man. So I guess it was fitting that that this week started off with the college football because it's also we were going to talk about student loans. We're going to talk about student loans. And so I think the best way, so I was up here right before coming on, going and doing a search on YouTube on different videos and stuff because of the changes in the law and what's happened. Okay. But I thought was probably more fitting that before I go ahead and show the other things concerning the current things that are going on, that I wanted to talk personally about my experience with student loans. Okay, going from my whole thing about college and everything,
Okay.
and talk about my experience, and then I would like for you to go ahead and talk about your experience because we do have some connections there about your road track, and we're going to see where we're at. Then I want to go and pull up some of the little YouTube videos that I just seen concerning
Hmm.
changes and stuff. They're kind of short, but I just want to like play the little video and for us to kind of discuss and give feedback
Okay.
on it. And then we'll see where we're at the end because I'm thinking this is just going to be the little tip on the iceberg.
Right.
And I kind of explain a little bit more on that because this is a topic that's not going to go away, but there's also some things in the background that kind of prevent you from going straight at it. But on YouTube, I'm seeing here, this is an avenue that I want to go ahead and try. Okay, so I want to go back again. So my whole thing as far as paying any type of tuition with school
Hmm.
actually began when I was back in high school. I mean, really elementary. So in elementary school, I went to Lexington, that was off of Kings Highway. And it was a grade
Okay.
school because I went there virtually from grades fifth through eight. There was my elementary was over in Missouri, not over in Missouri, in Illinois. It's over in Centerville, Illinois, so I went to elementary school. That was school was a little bit different. That was a school that time. So this is we're talking about what 63, 64, okay? After the assassination of Kennedy, before Martin Luther King really got more popular and everything else. We didn't have the
Mhm.
YouTube. I mean, we wouldn't have the social media and all that other
Right.
junk up there. But there was a bonding that was happening concerning um, concerning you had two different groups. You had kids, black kids in the city and everything else that were going to the public schools that was there. That was one group.
Right.
You also had another group that was fortunate enough that their parents were actually in the middle class or either worked for the government or the military, and their kids and their focus was on raising up kids with education. And to that mean, there was a cohort, a full collaboration between school administration and parents. Okay, such to
Right.
the point. Okay, when I was in my elementary school, and if you had a spelling bee test, okay, you had a spelling test. For every word that you missed on that test, you got your butt beat by this rat tan. And that rat tan was what they did, how they had, and full cooperation of parents. Okay,
Right.
they were determined that this group of young black kids were going to be going and be successful in school and going to college and get an education so that they can get out of the poverty up into the middle class. That
Right.
rattan, they used to take an iron and cut off the extension cord on the iron, cut the
Hmm.
plug off, okay, then wrap it with electrical tape, black electrical tape, set that oven for 400 degrees and put that damn thing in the oven, okay, and then pull it out and then let it sit. That was called the rattan. So in my fourth grade class, when you had a spelling and you missed a spelling word, for every word you missed, you got a swat on your ass. Full cooperation of parents. Nobody complained. Okay.
Yeah.
That was some hard damn times back then. So, but as a
Sounds about
result,
right. That's
huh?
how it was most of my time coming up in school too, until high school.
Yeah.
I mean,
It-
freaking, I remember doing stuff, getting in trouble, and getting my butt beat a couple of times at school before I even got home to get my butt beat again.
so it was
Numerous
rough back then.
occasions.
So I was fortunate enough to go to CBC because my parents both worked in the government and they were up under that mindset, just like all my cousins and stuff. We all went to college and stuff. So CBC was the first time that we were paying for school. I was able to get a partial scholarship going to CBC. But the first thing they tried to do was because there was only like six blacks in the school when I went there.
Hmm.
Uh, and the way they tried to get rid of us was well, the first thing is because they gave us a math test. Okay. And when got there, they gave me their math test, and I aced the math test, so they thought I was cheating. So they couldn't figure out how was I going to be smart enough to cheat. But then I had to do it again. Okay, and I
Right.
passed the test. And so they gave a partial scholarship, I'm thinking my parents, because I don't know how I know my dad started working two jobs and stuff like that. But anyway, so that was there, and CBC kind of opened up the doors. That's how I was able to get a nomination to the Naval Academy, and how my brother was able to get his appointment to the Air Force Academy was because it was a prestigious honor military school that could
Right.
nominate people to go to the service academy. So that was our way of getting to the middle class and stuff that way. Uh, but we didn't, my parents had to pay the tuition. That was it. Now, when I went to Annapolis, we went there. My dad had to write a check for $600. Okay.
Mm.
And the $600 was as an initial uniform allowance. And that's the only thing my dad had to pay. Now, when I went to Annapolis from 72 to 76, they had valued that education at being worth roughly $270,000 is what they had put a
Right.
price tag on it. Because it was everything. It wasn't just tuition. It was tuition.
Yeah. Room
It
and
was
board,
it was medical,
housing,
right?
yeah,
Room
medical,
and
food,
board,
everything.
travel, transportation. Because when we were there, we went summers. It was all across the world and everything else, and so that was there. So but the king obligation was that when I graduated, then I had a 6 year requirement.
Right.
So that I had to serve on active duty, which in my case, I chose the Marines, and I had to do 6 years. And at the end of that 6 years, then my debt or obligation was gone as far as my bachelor's. That was it. When in the Marines, but when I went in at the time point from 76, was that you had the GI Bill. And that GI Bill was something extended since World War II. And the way the GI Bill worked, it was that I didn't fully understand it. I knew I had a GI Bill and I knew it was there for
Hmm.
education, but I tried to focus on just me and my performance. And I found out that that was mistake number one as a young African American in the Marines, being a huge minority, that
Right.
every time I went to a command, I was the only person of color there. And as a result, I had to work 5 times harder just to stay even. But then they give me an outstanding fitness report. But then uh, the good old boys would actually rank me like 3 of 3. So I had an
Right.
outstanding fitness report, but they would rank me 3 of 3. Okay. So um, I had the GI Bill, but I didn't really realize it. And I was just working, I just wanted to work as a Marine and judge me as a Marine. That's what I thought. In the meantime, my Caucasian counterparts was using that GI Bill and to tuition assistance program to go ahead and get their masters. Okay. So, and then that means when you're comparing someone here, you got a first lieutenant, and a first lieutenant, but you get this one who's then going to college, is getting his master's. He has higher than a bachelor's.
Right.
And guess what? They were getting promoted faster, but nobody told me about that. I didn't have anybody in front of me to ask about advice because the vast majority of young black officers, when I went through at that time point, did not make it past their first 6 years. They were
Right.
on reserve commissions. They had a reserve contract for 4 years. And typically, if you want to get promoted, you need to work in your occupational field. So if I was an artillery officer, which I started out, I need to work in artillery, in the artillery battery. not motor transport, even though they got
Yeah,
trucks. And
doing
that's what
other
they do.
stuff
Yeah.
than
Or,
outside of your job.
right. Or military police or special services or clubs officer or any of that crap. And that's what they would do. The young black officers would come and they would wind up off shooting them and they weren't working in their occupational field. So they never made captain and they were gone. And that's how the attrition went out. So, um, but anyway, so they wind up going in and using the tuition assistance and stuff. Now, I didn't find out about tuition assistance until I'd been in the Marines for 9 years.
Mm.
And then because I got assigned as the tuition assistance officer and started learning about this. And I started seeing, so they were going and getting college classes and the tuition was $300, but they only had to pay $30 because the government was paying the 270. So I got kind of disillusioned with, not really disillusioned, really just pissed off at the Marine Corps and just
Mhm.
got tired of dealing with everything I was having to do just to stay even. I just wanted out. But when I got out, I still had my GI loan. Well, I wound up going over into Japan during that time point, meeting your brother's mom. I was overseas, and then I wound up coming back on active duty. But then they had changed it. The
Mhm.
politics had changed it, and they put an expiration date. So in December 31st of December 31st of 1987, they ended it, and it was gone.
Mm.
Okay. So that was worth roughly $37,000 as in the GI Bill. I never got to use. Gone. So at the time point, I said, "Oh, okay." I wasn't even interested in that point about going to college, not connecting the value of having a graduate's degree.
Mhm.
So I go on with my life in and out of the Marines, did active duty, did reserves. I was able to get promoted to major, and that was a goal because I had never seen anyone black that was a
Right.
major at the time point. Did that, and then when I got out and when I decided to become a teacher at the age 50 was when they had made changes. My bachelor's in math was not sufficient to be a teacher. You needed to have highly qualified as a master's. So in order to become a teacher at age 50, then I had to go back to get my master's, incurring the debt of, in this case, somewhere between 40 to $50,000.
Right.
Okay. I think, as a matter of fact, it was like 37 to $40,000. So that was my introduction to the student loans. They just said, oh, well, you can get a student loan. So yeah, okay, I get the student loan. You get the loan, they're paying for it. Everything is fine. I said, well, I guess I'll pay for it later. But they were talking about a loan forgiveness. And I said,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to teach. I'm doing public service. Then I'm saying, okay, I'm not going to worry about the loan. I'm going to do what I need to do to get my job. And I did that. And then I realized that's when I decided to go get my doctorates. And I was
Mhm.
still okay with that because guess what? I had student loans. And also, when you were going to school, you didn't have to pay on the loan. And that was all okay because I didn't have to make payments. So,
Not
yeah,
until you get done.
yeah, until you get done. So, I'm working, I'm making enough money. My money is going up, my pay is going up. I have enough to pay. And as my wife has said, like Joyce was saying, uh, don't worry about it. He said, because when you die, the loan goes with you. So as long as she says, as long as you're making enough money to pay for the loan and you're not delinquent, just pay the loan. And at that
Right.
point in time, that's what I did. So I went to school when I wanted to go to school, got my master's that I did, and got my doctorate and did that, and that's all fine and dandy. And then when I was forced to going up into retirement because of the health issues of things with the prostate cancer, um, I still didn't worry about it because at that point in time, I not only had my teacher's retirement, I was going to have my Social Security, but I was
Right.
also because of the disability and stuff with the PTSD and in that case, even the prostate cancer, I was getting money on my the VA. So, um, and getting that, and right now I am comfortable. Okay, uh, I make more than enough money to go ahead and pay for my student loan payment. I do. Okay, but it's just the fact that it's there and how I lost those benefits. So everybody's saying when you got in that everybody's going to get it. Well, that's not the truth. And the same thing on the loan forgiveness. When I got out, then I finally started going through the process, and I had done this twice before. Try to go through the process about getting the loan forgiveness
Hmm.
and get the runaround. Okay. Um, Not getting the right information, not on the right plans. Then it turns out that when I started looking at it, the thing at the end, it says, "Oh, if you wanted to have that forgiven during the 10-year point, then you needed to be on this plan,
Right.
not the plan you're on."
Right.
So that meant
Always some loophole.
always, always, you know, always up on there. So I'm a vet, so so my bachelor's was taken care of. I was a vet. I had money there that was supposed to come. Never was able to claim one single cent of it. Promised the thing about loan forgiveness. I did go to
Hmm.
school. I did get my doctors. I do that, but I still have that student loan debt going into retirement. And that's something that I think back because here recently what I did was to uh, start looking at my loan because when you start saying,
Hmm.
okay, I incurred the debt, so then it's okay. I should be paying it. Nobody else should be really paying my student loan. I mean,
Right.
that's one way you can take a look at it. In other words, someone who's a garbage truck driver or someone who's a plumber or whatever and didn't go to school or didn't go to get a student loan, uh, they should not be obligated as far as paying my student loan debt.
Right.
Because it wasn't theirs. But if my student loan is forgiven, and if the loans are, yeah, that you have a loan that is forgiven, that meant somebody had to pay for it, which meant it was being paid out of tax dollars because somebody's going to pay that off. So there's two different viewpoints. One part says, "Hey, I volunteered and paid 20 years of my life in the military, and then 20 years as a high school teacher, 40 years of service to for kids and everything else, the sacrifices and stuff on that." I'm saying, well, maybe that should be worth something, but
Right.
it's not. So I got to figure out another way. So, well, that's my experience. So what about your experience with student
So
loans?
with me, I really didn't even take a lot of it serious, whether it was the GI Bill or tuition assistance until after I got out. And I didn't even really put forth any true effort until I decided to go to school for business. But prior to that, I had went to school for everything from theology to video game creation, uh, personal trainer. I definitely used it. That's for daggone sure, but the majority of it I did use towards my degree in business. And that's the one that I had to get the student loans taken out for because I didn't have enough left of my GI Bill to finish paying for school. But so I'm not as in bad of debt as some people might be when it comes to their student loans. Like I'm not in the 40s or the 30s or anything of that nature. I'm actually less than 10 now. So
Okay.
it's manageable. But yeah, I'm in that same boat as you where I was told, well, if you go to school for this or you go to school for that, it'll be, forgiven, or if you do it within this time frame, you won't have to owe anything and you can get a grant for this. Um, which is something else that I definitely took advantage of was some grants as well. I
Mhm.
I don't know if you had that opportunity, but that definitely helped me offset a lot of what would have been definitely bigger. student loan debt. I was lucky enough to, have good grades, which allowed me to continuously apply for those grants and things of that nature, semester after semester. So for me, it wasn't as bad as I know it is for some people. Do I still have to pay the rest of my student loans back? Yes, because that like you said, the laws have changed. That little period where they put the little hold on it, as they say, where
Mhm.
they were talking about forgiving him, you know, uh, that's now gone away, and I don't have a problem with it either. It I do understand that there are certain situations where people can benefit from having their student loans paid for and taken care of and things like that. There's hardship, you lose your job, things happen, Uh, but as a whole, yeah, I'm in agreement that it's not necessarily that someone else should pay for what I went to school for, or pay for my loans or my student debt or anything of that nature. I think it's more of a situation where us as a society as a whole needs to think about how we restructure the educational system, because you have all these other countries that, quote unquote, let us tell it, aren't as good as America, but yet they have free education, they have free secondary schools, they don't have to worry about paying for that first degree after their primary school.
Right.
They don't have to worry about paying these absorbent loans back, that basically what went from being just a pure education system has turned into nothing more than just another arm of capitalism.
Hmm.
I mean, plain and simple as that. And so, I mean, even we see it here, even in small towns where they're constantly, your arms, careful, they're constantly wanting to hold this event or this carnival or hold this or hold that, and they want all this money, but what are you doing with it? I'm not seeing any improvements. I'm not seeing anything built up. Like, I've lived here for 2 years, and you just now put in a handicap accessible crosswalk that leads to the school from my street. We've been here for 2 years.
Hmm.
So where's all this money been going? You know, so it's like one of those things where I've noticed more and more within the past years, at least here in this state, that seems to be the way it's going, where it's more along the lines of all they really care about is how much money they can make and how quickly they can make it and take it out, and not, you know, anything else. So,
I
but that's
remember
just
the
my rant.
yeah, what we all has. I'm glad that your loan debt is a lot less than
Yeah.
that for sure. The other thing was concerning loan repayment. I remember when I was teaching high school math, the one thing I always tried to do was to connect things in real life to the classroom. So, like for instance, when the kids when I said, "Well, when am I ever going to use this math when I graduate from high school?" That was the main question. When am I ever going to use this afterwards? And I would use examples like, for instance, when I had my kitchen redone and we got the countertops and I want to remove the old white tile type of countertops and put
Hmm.
granite or put the quartz down, how I would go ahead and measure everything so I know what the total square footage was. So that when they came, and I always get 3 bits, was that when they came to give me the pricing, I would always corner them down and say, "What's your price per square foot?"
Yep.
Because yeah, that's how I would corner it down. It was only because I did my measurements and I also knew I needed to add 10% extra because everything's not perfect. Whether you're doing tiles, floors, or whatever, you have to add that in. Because I remember this, I've seen the commercial about Empire Furniture, and the guy came over the house, and this is when I was up by the lake house when we had the mobile home there. So it was a basic
Hmm.
20 by 60, so 1,200 square feet. And the guy came in and he wanted to charge, was it $9,500 to replace the flooring in the house. And at first it was 12,000, then it went down to 9,000. I'm saying, you know what? I tell you what, I said, no, I tell you what, let me go ahead and think about it. I would always do that because I'm always going to get my 3 bids. But in this time, what I did, I went and took my measure and I measured all the square footage and everything else back to the
Mm-hmm.
house where I wanted to put it. Then I got my car and went to Home Depot. And I went to the section where they had the flooring, the laminate flooring, and I saw the boxes there, and I figured out how many of these boxes that I need, and each one of these boxes was somewhat eight. So it turned out that in order to do just the flooring, it
Mm-hmm.
was like $560. And these
Yeah.
guys wanted to charge me eight, $9,000. I'm saying, what
It's
the
a
heck?
it's a funny you should say that because we literally went ahead and fired our restoration guy.
Yeah,
Uh, because you know how I was telling you how we were getting that work done and everything else. And we're gonna do it ourselves.
yeah,
Same thing. I looked at the bed and everything else, seeing how much they were trying to charge to fix the floor and put new cabinets in, and I was like, there is no damn way it should be over $20,000
yeah,
for as small as my house is. Number one, number two, how small my kitchen is. And you telling me $20,000 to replace that floor and some cabinets?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah, we're cool on that.
So,
So Misty has been so when I read it, luckily for me, it's a situation where because I had worked for the roofing and siding company, I knew how to read the contracts and everything else. And so I was taking a look at it and I'm going through it. And in my head, I'm thinking when I'm going through to look for the cabinets and for the countertops and everything else, that it's going to be listed, you know, by like, a set or like how many actual individual units we need and this and that. No, they was trying to measure it by linear foot.
yeah,
And then the way they were measuring it was being exaggerated. I looked at those numbers, looked at where my old cabinets and my old counter space was, and I was just like, yeah, that's not adding up. I was like, there's no way we have that much linear footage of cabinet space.
yeah.
There's like you gotta be kidding. $20,000 for let's see here. One, two, what? Three, four drawers, two cabinets, and a double sink, and some new
Yeah.
floor in the kitchen. And you tell me that's gonna be $20,000.
Yeah, and then they're gonna give you a payment plan on a contract if they had it.
And I know how
But
they
they just
be because when they come back at the end, well, see, we incurred an extra expense here, and see, the price of this went up because of them tariffs, and so your final price is actually 47,000. No, it's not.
hmm
Be like,
Yeah.
no, it's not. The price we agreed upon in the beginning is the price what I'm about to pay.
The other things on payments, most of it's like, for instance, like you sold cars, like I sold cars.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah. Oh,
you're,
oh yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah.
on
Oh yeah.
doing
Oh
the
yeah.
start,
Oh yeah.
people don't even look at the interest rate. So because they're looking at how
So what
much they can
payment do you
afford.
want to be at, sir?
The payment.
Oh,
That's
you want to
right.
be at 650? Hold on, I'll be right back. I'll be
Yeah.
right back.
On the
All right,
payment.
sir. Now, see, because of your credit and because of the previous loan and the repossession you had, I couldn't get you at that 650. The best I'm gonna be able to get you at is about 680 or 7. All right. Will that work for you? That ain't gonna take food off the table, is it? It works. All right. Go ahead and sign right here. Sign right
Yeah.
here.
So you're talking about having a nightmare attack that's at um I think I mentioned stuff before. Let me see if I can pull it. I think I should be able to pull this up if I don't get everything else all messed up. Ooh. Oh, yeah, okay. Let me go here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, can you see my screen, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what I'm showing here is a payment schedule from how student loans are constructed. Because what most people don't realize is that when you took out the loan and everything else, but eventually you got to start making your payments. And then they
Yep.
have all the payment plans. And most people, again, only looking at how much they want to pay. Okay. But what they don't do is, like in this case, what I did was actually pull up and went to the account history and pull up the account history and have it pull out uh, the history of payments. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Most people only look at the payment. You think, okay, so like in this case, this is $708 a month. You think, okay, I'm paying $700 a month. At the end of the year, 12 months, about 8 grand I'm paying off, on that principal.
Nah,
No, you take
that
a look
freaking
at this crap.
interest
You see
killing
here in
them.
the numbers, and here it shows a payment of $708, but $480 was going to interest.
There was only a few payments where it went straight to principal. Everything else was going to interest.
Everything else is, oh yeah, like here, down here. I'm looking at
Yeah,
10/17/23, made a payment, 682, and all of it went to interest. And I started look, so how is that possible? Well, it's because of the way that the federal loans. You're talking about the biggest scam on the loans is really how the loans are structured. It's worse. Okay, so for instance, when you buy a home and you take out $100,000 mortgage and you take it out for 30 years, by the time
hmm
you get done paying off that house, making your regular house payments, okay, which is your minimum payments on there, you're going to be paying over $330,000 for that home.
yep,
Okay. And that was okay and fine because when I was growing up and through the tax laws and stuff, you used to be able to deduct it. So when I had the homes here in California, we had a two-story home. And we were actually in the point we were carrying two. I was paying like $3,800 in mortgage payments. But I really wasn't concerned, and my wife wasn't really concerned because at that time you could deduct the interest, which
right,
meant it was lowering my taxes where I was always getting money back. But then you had somebody named Donald T that came in and they changed that. And when they changed that, that interest, you don't get it. Okay. So the
right,
same thing here on the student loans. Now, the thing is on the student loans, they do on this amount of interest, you're able to deduct that at the end of the year, but it's limited to only $2,500 that they're going to give you a tax credit. But the other thing I noticed on here, you notice how the principal, typically when you get a loan, whether it's a home or your car, you're always going to pay at the beginning. You're going to pay, they're going to front load the interest. But eventually
hmm
it gets to a point where things start to slide. That eventually, about halfway on that loan, that your interest and your mortgage, your interest and your principal payments are equal, and then it reverses. Okay.
hmm
That's how normal loans are. Okay. In this case, we're looking here where the interest payment, you look at the interest is higher, right? Than what the
Yeah. I
principal
mean,
is.
it's still pretty freaking high,
It's still high.
pretty much
Now
the
look,
entire time.
yeah, all the way up in there. If you want to look at, you don't see it anytime that is doing it here on the interest payments. And you're right. A lot of times, like here, I make that payment and it
It
just
just
all went to
it went
interest.
straight to interest.
All went to interest.
I'm like,
All went to
what?
interest. In here, all in interest. So if the thing is that people don't look at this. If you looked at this, if I had seen this when they first said pull out the loan on the amortization on it, there would be no way in hell that I would have signed and get the student loan. But see, they made it
Yeah,
so easy. And you're only
they
thinking
really
about the
do.
payment.
They really do.
Yeah.
They
So
really
that's
do.
the, yeah, it's not about taking the loan out to get your education and understanding you have to pay it back.
It's predatory lending at its finest.
Yes. Yes. That's the part.
It
It
really,
is.
really is. It's
Yeah.
predatory lending at its finest.
That is the part. So now understanding and once pulling this out, see this is what I'm gonna get on my bandwagon about getting the message out about the student loans. You need to pull up your account history and look at your payments because if you keep doing what you're doing. So here's the thing. So I went to my little friend. I called my little
It's,
friend.
it's gonna
Uh
take you forever to pay off them damn
yeah,
student loans
yeah.
for
So I
for
went to
those folks that have the absorbent student loans.
yeah,
It's gonna take you forever to pay
yeah.
them.
So currently, if I had just at what the mountain is doing right now, okay, and just leaving it right there, it would take me 27 years to pay off my student loan. I
That's
better
a
be
that's
dead.
a house. That's a house. That's a house loan.
What is that?
27 years. That's a
Yeah.
house.
So now,
Uh,
but now let's talk about the power of things. So now that I understand that, now that the whole thing is right now,
mhm.
currently, if I die, then it doesn't go to my wife. Okay, it's hooked up to us that when we die. But just like everything else, like what you have up under the Biden administration, He put an executive order and said that you don't have to pay. Okay. And that was done. Now the new guy comes in. He said, "Oh, hell no. No, you are going to pay." And then
Oh, that's not
also,
all these. Oh,
and then he
that's not
raised the
it.
interest rate. Now they raised the interest rate on it.
Yeah.
Okay. And the whole thing on the restructure the loan, it's not just the interest. They pay interest and fees and collect that out first. So the one
Yeah.
I have is lucky, but it's because I've been paying. But anybody else that had that same amount, it's even worse. So
Oh
now,
yeah.
but now what I did do was this. I said, okay, I don't want to take the chance of having this carried on. Okay. Because it's attached to me. Okay. Supposedly. Well,
Right.
I don't have faith. I don't have the faith that it's going to stay like that. Which means that if I'm the only survivor that, like, so if the wife dies before me and then I'm dead, I don't give a shit. Okay.
Right.
Okay. But if from the other hand, if I'm going with this mindset, and this here's the big difference on the mindset. Okay. If I've made the decision now that I want to change and create generational wealth, that does matter
Right.
because that money is being eaten up. And the whole thing is that really, I don't want anybody right now that I see what I've gone through, and I've accomplished a lot. Yes, I have my doctor's degree. Yes, am I living comfortably? Yes, I am. Okay, but the thing about dying and not being able to leave something is a problem for me.
Right.
And I know that unless I start living differently and taking different action, that that's not going to change. And somebody has to do it. See, somebody in somebody's family, we're talking about the wealthy, about what they do and how they're able to transfer. Like, for instance, yeah, Donald Trump's son, he didn't have to pay for, he didn't go through no student loans.
Yeah. Nah.
No, they didn't go no student loans. Why? Because they structured and created generational wealth in their families and they have an educational trust. And that's why they have a business with an LLC. They've always gone through with businesses and learning how to use other people's money, not afraid of debt. But it was the fact about creating systems and funds and changing mindset about how we manage and deal with money. And like in this case here, of being able to share that conversation. So you're saying, hey, guess what? No, I don't want my grandsons going, to go and get student loans unless they realize how the loan is structured. And more importantly, that they have a plan to pay it off. Not where it's given it because it's your debt,
Yep.
but they need to know. So looking at the numbers now, so now that we understand numbers, the numbers I showed you, if I was to pay an extra $100 instead of paying $700, if I paid an extra $100 on that, then that $100 would save $18,000 in interest. If I could pay another uh, $200 a month, I would save $21,000 in interest. If I
That's
had
definitely a situation where
$500,
you need to
if I,
pay it.
yeah, if
You
I
need to
could pay,
double your payment a
yeah,
month if you
right,
can.
really. So this was the whole
In
thing.
all
I'm saying,
honesty.
I'm saying if I could create a side business, here's the thing.
Mhm.
If I could create a side business that's doing residual income, which means after I did the work, okay, and income is coming in on a monthly basis, and if I could take that amount of money and apply it to the loan, I could actually, with $500 a month on that, doing that, I could actually pay off that loan in 7.5 years. Okay. But then you don't stop because I remember one of the examples I was using with my high school math students was about how do you how do you have how can you buy a brand new car every 5 years without a loan? Okay. And I talked about because here's the difference. Most people go out and we go get a new car. Well, the
Mhm.
pact is what you do instead of going get a new car where everybody else gets a new car, you go out and you get yourself a used car that you can pay You save up your money and you pay maybe two, $3,000. And what you're gonna do is take care of that the little car. And then what you're gonna do is take the amount of money that you would have been paying for that car through a loan and take that and put it in the bank. And you do that for 5 years. You maintain and riding your little buggity buck, whatever you got, getting you point A and point B while you take in the money. Then at the end of 5 years, you take money out, and now you get yourself a little bit better of a used car. And the same thing, but you still keep making those payments. After you
Mhm.
do that for the first 10 years, you'll be able to go to the bank and pull out money to buy a brand new car for cash for the rest of your life. For the rest of your life. That's what we're talking about, the power of that compound, power of the interest and understanding that. And that's the lesson. We don't realize that we don't teach and talk about that interest. And so as a result, I know that I got ripped off when I went and got my first car. And I know why, because nobody in my family was there to explain to me about principal and interest. Okay.
Right.
No one was able to tell me that. I remember, as we mentioned before, about getting cars. I mean, I had a 1975 Monte Carlo that I didn't have to make a payment on because they had a special deal as a midshipman, but it was accruing interest while it was. So that when I did graduate and I did start making my payments, I was really upside down on that car. But I can make the payments, so I didn't worry. And I had the credit. And then when I didn't like that car because the other guy had that Toyota Celica and I went decide to go get that, I traded in that car that I only had for a year and a half, which meant it was upside down, and traded that for
Yeah,
that new Celica.
been there, done that.
Yeah, and they just took that principal amount and piled it up on it. So I'm really upside down. And then I even 2 years, less than 2 years later, I did it again. Eventually got to the point that I couldn't do that. And then the next thing I know, I'm up a driving old beat up Pinto.
Let's see. Let's see. I had a similar story in the military as well. Went from a what was it? It was a 93 Pontiac Grand Am GT to a 96 Mitsubishi Galant to a brand spanking new 99 Ford Escort when they had just redesigned them.
Yeah.
I did something similar.
Yeah. Eventually keep going through that stuff. So I wound up eventually here with the cars and stuff, I guess for the last 10 years I've actually leased the car. Um, I leased it because they already knew that I was content with making the car payment, that
Yeah,
I was going to go anyway. So then that's why I started doing leasing. But the other reason on leasing is that because then I could actually deduct it from a business standpoint. But now I'm at the point in time, I don't want it. So we got the two cars now, but the one car is already paid off. So I got the 2020 Cadillac CT5 that only has about 13,000 miles on it. So, and that's
nice.
paid off. And so, and the other one I got is the CT5 that I have. But that one, that lease next is going to expire here in a couple of months, and I'm just going to turn it in because I want to take that extra money and knock it on these student loans and
And
stuff like
do
that to
something
pay
else
them
with
off.
it.
Yeah, I don't need it because right now I won't, because we're both retired and I really don't need two cars right now. So it's nice to have it, but I'm not
Yeah,
traveling. When I was working, I was traveling and doing these inspections and everything else, but now I'm tapered that off because I'm sitting now. So,
yeah.
but
I was gonna say, for us, both my bikes are paid for. I did that because I was like, I'm not finna finance a toy. That's how I look at motorcycles. They're toys. So both my bikes are
yeah.
paid for. I think we have 1 year left on her Jeep loan and 2 years left on my truck.
Mhm.
And I'm all right with that because she loves her Jeep. Probably she's not gonna want to trade it in or get anything
Mhm.
else. Um, once it's paid off, she wants to keep it.
Yeah.
And I'm the same way with my truck. I don't have a need for anything other than my truck. It's a truck.
Yeah.
Uh, and if I need something fast, once my arm heals, I hop on my bike. So yeah.
So have you
I
gone back to work yet? Are you still are you back to work?
So so yes, I went back the first week. I did 3 days the first week, and then I just did 4 days this last week.
Okay.
I'm just taking it day by day, If my arm's not feeling too hot or I'm having too much pain, then I won't go in.
Mhm.
But I worked. What did I work this past week? I worked Monday, Tuesday, took Wednesday off because my arm was killing me late on Tuesday. And then I came back to work Thursday, Friday. We're off tomorrow because of the holiday. And so I only got 4 days this week to work, and I'm gonna see if I make it through.
All right, cool.
Everything is just day in, day out because some days it's a good day, some days it's a bad day from a pain perspective. Speaking of which, I'll probably have to get off of here soon because I do have to take
We're
my
about,
meds
yeah,
here
yeah.
soon.
No, we're all good. We're all good. I mean, the main thing, one of the, we discussed our personal history with student loans, the kind of defeated or destroyed the different myths about student loan forgiveness and also what you're able to get while you're in the military and everything else, the different options.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Um,
mean, there's great options for people, but people need to understand fully, number one, what those options are and what the consequences are of entering into these contracts. Because at the end of the day, these are legally binding
yep,
contracts. And if you don't pay this stuff, just like anything else,
right.
they'll sell to
They should.
collection agencies. But the thing about the student loans is more so than anything else is they definitely will come after you. They'll garnish your wages and everything else quicker than any other debt
Yeah.
collection
And it
that you
also
will
impacts when I first started to so when the
hurt your
collapse,
credit too.
yeah, when the collapse hit 2007, 2008, and our house went upside down, I had to turn the houses over. I was lucky that the house was with was kind of secured by a GI, the VA loan. Okay,
Yeah,
but then it wiped out that portion of guaranteed loans. So I had to do FHA loans
yeah,
to get the house, but the student loans was impacting that. It
yeah.
required me to have more of a savings down to put on a down payment on the house because of that. So you're right, student loans. The other thing, I have teachers that are still teaching, okay, that are still going to school, got their doctorates, got a
Hmm.
master's, and are still going to school so that they don't have to make their school payment. So
Mm,
the amount that I got
mm.
and paid for my loans is it. When I retired, this doctor had loans, and she's a regular teaching doctor, not a medical doctor. She had loans in excess of $300,000, and she was still going to school
Because
because
she
she
knows as long as she's constantly going to school, she doesn't have to pay him
doesn't
back.
have to pay, and that's really stupid.
That's
Okay, so that
scandalous.
definitely. And one
That
besides,
is
you keep going to school.
scandalous.
Yeah,
Oh, that is dirty.
yeah. Not only that, then so yeah, so then she's also going to school to do that, and you're still having to work. But it's like, oh God. Well, unfortunately, she wound up being. You have some people, that they have kids, and so she had grandkids that was thrown on their doorsteps because their kids were irresponsible. But
Hmm.
it's like you keep doing that, man. But so if there's anybody out there listening now, don't use forbearance as a tool to not make your payments. And you're right.
Yeah,
It's
don't.
it's a federal loan. You took out the loan, you have to pay that loan. And if
Yeah.
you don't, they will come after you. Okay? Garnish your paycheck. They will come after you. Believe me, the
About them
current
student
administration
loans.
will
Because you wanted
come.
to be a CNA
Now,
or you
now
wanted to be a nail tech.
on the other lighter side of it, I did see a commercial just yesterday that says, "Hey, if I go ahead and volunteer to be ICE, I can get for $50,000 of my loan forgiven."
No wonder Dean Kane went to go be work for ICE. Now I get it. He
Oh
got to pay
yeah,
off
but
them
yeah,
student
yeah,
loans.
yeah. But you know, that's just like how they structured the loan for you to pay back. So the question is, how many years you got to work for ICE
I
before you're
mean,
going to get that student loan
I mean,
forgiven?
what's the
Yeah,
age limit?
yeah.
Is there an age limit? Do they take ex-military? Hold on now. Hold
I
on.
don't know.
Hold on now. Hold
You may have to think of that. All right, now, but then you got to do that physical stuff. Screw that. I ain't done with that. I mean, I do enough of my exercise, but I ain't gonna get out there and run a mile and a half, 2 miles. With the Marines, it was 3 miles. Done with that crap. So, all right, let you go, and we're done with this. This is another wrap. Hey, this is episode 10.
Hey!
Hey, this is episode 10. Sounds great.
Nice.
Sounds like a winner. All right,
Sounds
then.
like a winner.
All right, then I'll see you next week. You take care, give the best to my family and everything else.
Most definitely. I was
Kids and
gonna
stuff.
say
All
give the
right, and
best to
tell
yours
Misty,
as
hey.
well. You know what I'm saying? Love you, Dad.
All right, love you too. All right, then.
All
All
right.
right,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye. If you enjoyed what you heard today, don't forget to subscribe to Teach, Lead, Inspire, empowering educators for transformative change on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. And remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. Connect with us on social media to continue sharing ideas, strategies, and stories of educational empowerment. Together, we can create a brighter future for students everywhere. Until next time, keep teaching, keep leading, and keep inspiring. Goodbye from your host today, Jordan B. Smith Jr., and the team at Teach, Lead, and Inspire.